Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm Jacqueline, by the way, the editor at ChurchPOP.
Nice to meet you, Jacqueline.
Nice to meet you. So you're Jennifer, are you the executive producer? What was your role in the film?
So I'm the CEO of Robert Craig Films, and
Oh,
then I'm also the producer of the feature film No Address that comes out on the 28th, as well as our recent documentary, Americans with No Address, that's streaming on Amazon now.
okay. Well, I loved the movie. It made me cry. Like I was like
Oh,
bawling at the
All
end.
right, that's really the concept of the movie No Address is for people to identify, that homelessness could happen to anyone, and it really, I mean, they say one third of Americans will have a family member or a close friend experience homelessness within the next 12 months.
Glad that what this movie does to me is it puts things in a different perspective and makes you grateful for what
Mm,
you have. Because
yes.
some people have nothing.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
just my 2 cents. I thought it was really good.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you again for sharing that.
Welcome.
I really do appreciate it.
So, what message do you hope to convey with this story, No Address?
Well, I think just like I said too, I mean, I think the idea of this, it's inspired by true events. And while it's fictional, it is so many different storylines, as you saw, that really take you down different paths to understand what it would be like, for foster care. Mental health, as you said, 75% of those that are on our streets today have untreated mental health. And so while we talk about this as a homeless crisis, it really is, like you said, a mental health crisis. And so, at the end of the movie too, our actors were so engaged throughout this, not just as actors, but as people that really wanted to lean into this cause. They spent some time actually prior to making the film by walking through homeless encampments, visiting homeless shelters, having conversations with those experiencing homelessness. And I think for them personally, it was important that this was a cause-related film that told stories, but in a way that called you to action. And so, to answer your question, we hope that, it provides that understanding when we have understanding, a better understanding of something, we're inspired to do something, and inspiration brings about change. And so, the call to action is to find your local nonprofits in the areas, find your churches in the areas, partner, volunteer, donate. And then I always say, the simplest thing that we all can do is that when we walk by someone that is experiencing homelessness is to look at them, smile at them, say hello. So often, when I talk to people, they talk about the fact that they feel invisible. I remember this one time I actually walked by a gentleman down the street and I said, good morning and what's your name? And he looked at me like I asked him, a mathematical, question that he could not answer. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. I just wanted to ask your name so I could pray for you. And he just looked at me and said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just can't remember the last time somebody asked me my name. And so it was that moment that I thought, like, we're all born in the image of God, and we're all in this together, and one human's no different than the other, and so we shouldn't look in disgust or judgment, but to find love, in each one of us, and find that compassion and empathy that we can bestow on them.
How did your Catholic faith impact the telling of this story?
Yeah, it's interesting too as we walked into this film, and some people said, "Oh, it's a faith-based film. Oh, it's a secular film. Oh, it's faith infused." And I think that well, and especially too, I mean, obviously that we know, Jesus emphasized so much caring of the homeless, so that was just an easy mark in so many different ways. But I think it's a lot about restoring dignity. We know that from our faith of how we look upon people. With dignity rather than judgment. And, I think my faith, helped to lean in and be able to showcase what is that compassion and that empathy, that we need to bestow on others. Jesus used parables, we use film. It's all about storytelling, so people can connect with what it is that we're trying to share. And this important mission, we talk about it not just really being a movie, but a movement, and how we can bring about the right perception, change the hearts and minds of others, reshape, the narrative in so many different ways.
How do you think it could, like, why do you think this is important for Catholics to see? Because a lot of us are kind of in our bubble, and we don't, some people see homelessness, some people don't. It depends on, I guess, where you're at and what you're exposed to. So, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I just think it's an opportunity for us as Christians, to live out our faith, uh, through prayer, through volunteering, around this subject matter. 2.8 million individuals in our country are homeless, and more than half of them are children. So it's also, I think, a perfect way to bring faith-based and secular together by the nature of the film. And you saw it, right? That we all can join hands and understand someone's journey and someone's pain and someone's hurt. And we as Christians can do that, walking alongside these individuals, supporting our homeless ministries in our churches. The Catholic churches have tremendous amount of great homeless ministries. We've also provided a resource called an interactive study guide that's amazing for small Bible group studying, for churches to really be equipped with the resources to be able to figure out how to engage rather than enable, that we don't leave mass and just hand out food. If we're doing that, we hand out food and we engage in conversation and we connect with individuals. And that's how we build those relationships over time, that allows someone to find trust, and maybe lean into their own faith, to follow us on that journey to help them into recovery.
Do you think this film could also lead? I mean, I don't know how many, if there's going to be homeless people or former homeless people who are going to watch this film, but do you think it could help lead them to faith and seeing the goodness in Christianity?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example here locally. I volunteer in one of the shelters, and they have 12 different programs, and one of them is a family program. And it's actually a nomadic model. And so they come in for the day and receive all of their services during the day. And then they get on a bus and they go to a different church every single night, and many Catholic churches. And I have seen, and I volunteer at my Catholic church here, and a number of others downtown, when they go to these evening events. And they really keep it open to that extent that, we're here to serve food, provide a place to sleep tonight, provide an activity, maybe that's a movie or haircuts. And I can honestly tell you, I've seen the shift and change in following, these individuals that go to the different churches each night. And I think just having that available to individuals that are lost, feeling a sense of no belonging and not having any family support network. When you walk into a church and you're there, you can't help to feel the love and the support. And I've really seen that change a lot of people, and be open-minded to finding their right way back, but knowing that God is there to help them along the way to do it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's really been neat to see.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about this film for the church pop audience and for Catholics in general?
Well, and I think our project, just to kind of back up a little bit, Jacqueline, we call it the Big Five because we set out to make this film, really with the goal, for people to lean in and not have the, not my backyard kind of mentality, that we are all in the same backyard, and we should all be in this together, and support. But in order to make sure the movie was authentic, it was important for us to research and study. And so we actually journeyed for over 3 weeks across the country in a bus, Yeah, to make our documentary. Well, it wasn't supposed to be a documentary, but that's what it turned into. We had over 175 interviews with churches and nonprofits and just amazing organizations and political leaders across the nation to just really understand in order to make sure there was authenticity in the movie No Address. But what was born was Americans with No Address, the documentary that's streaming now on Amazon. And it really depicts what's working and what's not working and how we got here as a country. But one of the biggest takeaways that we saw from it is that 65% of the organizations that are addressing homelessness are faith-based organizations, and many, many Catholic churches. And it was just kind of an eye-opening. It's like you think that's the way it is, but you're really not sure until we journeyed out on this documentary and how incredible organizations are across this country. And to your point, faith-based organizations like Salvation Army, City Gate Network on a national level, but certainly then all of our churches across the country. They are the ones actually making the difference. They are the solution-based or entities that are really moving the needle and having so many programs and ministries, that can be replicated in other churches or other, states as far as organizations that really make that difference. So that was eye-opening, I think, for us to see, how the faith-based community has really leaned into the topic of homelessness. And then from that, we actually published a novel around the screenplay, as well as the study guide for churches, as well as a soundtrack that goes along with it. And for us, it was really important that all of those 5 productions, that 50% of the net profits of everything that we're doing goes back to organizations that are addressing homelessness, including our Catholic churches.
What kind of impact do you think it had even on the cast of the film? Like going back to the film that's coming out. So how did they feel when they were finished doing all of this or during the process? Was it eye-opening for them at all?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, a profound experience, they would tell you today. This project started a little over 2 years ago. In the movie itself is Billy Baldwin, Ashanti, Beverly D'Angelo, Ty Pennington, Xander Berkeley, just some phenomenal names, but phenomenal people. And we filmed it locally here where we're based in the Sacramento area. And they came up and at first said, we'll walk homeless encampments, let's visit shelters. And I think at first they thought, well, maybe this is to get into character, as an actor. And they would tell you today it was a profound experience. I'll never forget, Billy walked into the first encampment. He had everybody circle around. He had everybody bow their heads and pray. And he said, we are about to experience something I think that none of us have ever experienced. And they walked in and just began talking to individuals, praying with them. And we went on, of course, to make the film. And we've been promoting it obviously for a long time, and they've been in media, and I've seen the shift almost too, from just talking about a Hollywood film to talking about the meaning behind this, and how we need to look at people differently in this situation, and how we need to lean into our faith, and how Xander and Ashanti and Billy are very strong in their faith, especially, and they speak from that perspective that we have an opportunity and an obligation, as Christians to do something, to whatever that can be, as small as it might be, as smiling at somebody as we're walking down the street, as much as it is to volunteer. Billy spent much time with us here locally where we filmed and visited the shelters and sat and talked with people for a long time. I remember him saying, I really didn't know what to expect, but he was shocked that many of the shelters he would go into here, that 25% of the people in there have full-time jobs. And that was not something I think that we all think of, but when you're in communities, especially here in California, that it's too expensive to, have an apartment, that it's taking them 6 months in a shelter to save the funds to even get an apartment. I know the one that I volunteer in, that's their stats is 25% of them have full-time jobs. And I remember Billy sitting there and one lady said, I have to go now. I work at Home Depot down the street, and she put on her boots and he looked at me and I said, yeah. And what's also really beautiful, I think, too, is these companies, like Home Depot is one of them here, that ensures opportunities for jobs for those that are struggling in this situation. So certainly, Billy took the time. I remember when Ashanti said after she left the set, she was traveling to Toronto, and she was made a comment that, oh my gosh, it looked just like the set of our movie. And I don't think my eyes were open to it as much as they are now after doing this film. Xander Berkeley is a painter. He's an actor, but he's also a phenomenal painter. And he painted the cast while he was on set. And we're displaying them actually at the premiere in LA on Tuesday. And one of his biggest quotes, and I'll butcher this so it won't be exact, but is that he says, I walk the streets differently. I take the time now to engage, to have a conversation. I've learned so much in doing this project because it's changed me, and I know that my role, is important for me to engage with individuals, and that for some small conversation, maybe that helps them, in a different way. So yes, truly profound experience for the cast that have been involved in this. It's been a beautiful journey with them.
Then was it your idea to do this film, or who decided to do something like this and why?
Yes. Yeah. So Robert Craig, just a quick little background. Robert Craig is an entrepreneur that started the company Gutter Glove, which makes your gutter guards. So completely something different, but extremely involved in his church and a homeless ministry, and him and his wife and his mother-in-law volunteered for many years, so much passion around that. We were actually in the middle of a different film called Amy and Angel, and we were the team was driving through LA near Skid Row and having conversations about, gosh, wow, look at what this looks like, and how it continues to grow in our country. And the director, who was the director of the movie that we were doing, Amy and Angel, said, I actually have a screenplay for something, which ended up being called No Address. And when the team read it, it was like this moment in time of like, you know what, we need to pause. This is a story that needs to be told. This is so prevalent in our country, and we just kind of fell in love with it in the sense too that it was inspired by true stories. And as we all began to journey through this process, we've seen all those stories, every storyline, the economic side of it, the mental health side of it, domestic violence, all of that. And so we just everybody agreed as a team, we need to put Amy and Angel on pause. And this is a message that needs to be told. And again, it was just going to be a film, and then it turned into a documentary, and then, study guide and book. And I love that because again, it's the power of film that's telling stories. As I said earlier, Jesus used parables. We're using the power of film to be able to touch people in all different ways. And if you're a moviegoer and I love documentaries, we still can see the same message. If I love reading a book, but you'd rather listen to an audiobook, then the medium that's there can reach so many people. And I think especially so many Christians because they have the love and the power to lean in and to help others, I think, lean in to be able to reshape this narrative.
Well, thank you so much. That's so beautiful and important. I really look forward to sharing this message with my audience because I think it's so important.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here today.